Okay, so we're going to start the second part of our ecosystems unit. And so now we're going to talk about short and long-term changes. So what we're going to be looking at is, again, changes to the population size, but this time due to environmental changes. And then we're going to look at frequency of a trait in a population. And then, again, all of this is through the changes in the environment. We're also going to talk a little bit about, are they natural causes or are they human-made kind of changes? Okay. So just as I said, our learning targets are going to be to predict changes in the population size due to short and long-term environmental changes, and then predict changes to the frequency of a trait in a population due to environmental changes. In order to kind of gather, a full understanding, there's some 7th grade material that we're going to review. Okay, so let me make this big. So in 7th grade, we learned that traits are characteristics of an organism. So traits are passed down to an offspring. So traits could be their coloring, it could be the type of beak they have, how long or short their neck is. We have traits that we get from our parents, like my family. We all have brown hair, we all have brown eyes. And so when it's being passed down, this is called inheritance. Okay, so again, however the parents look, they're going to pass on those heritable traits to their offspring. Okay. In the 7th grade, we also learned a little bit about natural selection. So remember, Charles Darwin observed different species of finches living off the Galapagos Islands. He proposed that the Galapagos finches evolved or changed compared to the finches found in South America. The finches differed from each other mainly in the shape of their beaks and in the food they ate. He called this natural selection. Okay, so we're gonna, again, because this was like a big deal in the 7th grade, we're gonna watch this video. We're gonna watch this video so that we can hopefully remember what we learned last year, so that when we're talking and making references about 8th grade material, you can make that connection. So give me a second.
Hi, my name is Mary Poffenroth, and I'm an adjunct professor of biology, and today we're going to talk about natural selection. Natural selection, or survival of the fittest, was one of Darwin's mechanisms for explaining how evolution worked. Natural selection is based on change, and our environment is constantly changing. Things warm up, things cool down, continents shift, plagues come and plagues go. So things are always in flux. It's important to note a few things about evolution though. Evolution can only happen on a population, and evolution happens from random mutations. There is no organism, even including ourselves, that can will themselves to change their DNA and will themselves to evolve. Also, keep in mind that if a mutation is not predominant in a population, then it's not considered evolution. So let's use a fun little example. Let's say I was born with webbed feet. I didn't have a choice, it was just a random mutation, and that's the way it is. On dry land, it's not so easy to have webbed feet. It makes it really hard to run and impossible to buy shoes. Now let's say, as our global temperatures increase and our polar ice caps begin to melt, our world becomes covered in water. Now who's the weird one? Now that the environment has changed, my adaptations make me more advantageous to the environmental conditions. I'm better adapted to getting resources, and now that I can get resources, I can live long enough to pass those genes on to the next generation. Thanks for watching, and if you want to learn more about this subject, click on the link below. Or if you want to learn more biology, feel free to click on any of the links around me. And please, rate, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Or maybe, if you have ideas for more videos.
Okay, so as I said, we talked a little bit about natural selection and Charles Darwin in the 7th grade. What we're going to be doing is now we're going to be looking at how environmental changes, are going to affect some traits that are going to be passed down, okay? So we have short-term and long-term changes. So for the short-term changes, Many species have characteristics to help them cope with natural short-term environmental changes. These natural changes occur in cycles throughout the history of the species, which allow the species an opportunity to adapt. For example, okay, plants that grow in areas that experience regular seasonal fires may have a variety of adaptations to help them survive. Some plants are able to regrow from roots that survive the fires. Some plants are so well adapted to fire that their seeds will not germinate into new plants unless they're exposed to fire or smoke. Germinate means like they're going to start sprouting their roots and so forth. Okay. So just to kind of, how did I take that off? I guess I did. Just to kind of summarize that, short term, it's going to occur quickly. It's going to affect organisms immediately. The behavior of the organism might change. Effects usually last 5 years or less, okay? So some examples are going to be like droughts, flooding, volcanic eruptions, forest fires, and blizzards, okay? You're going to notice here that these are kind of those natural disasters that can occur, you know, regularly, okay? Long-term changes. So these are environmental changes are much more gradual and then allow the population the opportunity to adapt. So because it's a slow changing process, you're going to start seeing those adaptations popping up in some species. So for example, natural temperature fluctuates and cycles occur on Earth over thousands of years. These fluctuations may cause changes to an ecosystem that are too gradual to be observed directly. Over time, populations adapt in order to better survive in their changing ecosystems. So again, to summarize that, they occur slowly. It's going to affect these organisms over generations. So not just like the parent and the babies, but then the other babies after that, the babies after that, the babies after that, you're going to see that kind of gradual change, right? It can cause physical change in DNA, and it can even cause extinction, okay? Examples here, deforestation. So that's when humans, okay, so this is humans go in and cut down all the trees. Urbanization, that's where we take a piece of land and start building like buildings and houses and stores, and so it's that concrete. Climate change, what we're kind of experiencing now, and then radioactive waste pollution, okay? So some adaptations, I didn't put all of them in here, but some adaptations that that we see can be physical or behavior. So remember that organisms can't change on their own to survive, okay? So like, for example, you can't have a bunny rabbit and he's like, oh, I can't find any food. I'm going to make my own food like a plant does, okay? No, it doesn't work that way. So they are born with their traits that allow them to survive or not in an environment. The organisms that have the adaptations will live on and pass on their advantageous traits to their offspring. So some adaptations, you know, camouflage, species that can blend, camouflage is species that can blend in their environment. So right here, I circled it, but that owl, that's camouflage. Okay, there's many animals that have camouflage, but the ones that are going to survive the longest or have survived the longest are typically they pass down this trait, okay? Mutation is a permanent change in DNA. So penguins, they look like this, right? They have the little white belly, and then typically their backs are black. So, but because his belly is all black, this is a mutation. So this is going to be, he's going to be easier to spot by predators, okay, because of his little belly. Then there's behavioral adaptations. Okay, so behavioral adaptations, we have like hibernation. So hibernation is a time of inactivity. So you guys are used to it like from cartoons and stuff, like, oh, they went to sleep, but there's a lot more to it. They're not just like a bear sleeping. Their body temperatures get lowered. They slow their breathing down. They slow other vital functions down. And so that their body's going to slowly burn what they've been storing, that energy that they've been storing to get them through that time. Okay. Migration. So these are animals that travel from one habitat to another in search of food, better conditions, or reproductive needs. And again, if a population of a species continuously declines, that species can become extinct. So extinction can be caused by predation, natural disasters, or damage to the environment. So what we're going to do here is we're going to use the notes. We're going to use our notes and try to figure out what's happening to the ecosystem. Is it short-term or long-term? And then what do you think is going to happen to whatever organisms they're talking about? So for example, here, Mono Lake water diversion. Water is diverted from Mono Lake to supply Los Angeles with water. Mono Lake is a salt lake with no outlet. It is an important ecosystem for many wildlife species. Diverting water from the rivers that supply the lake with water also causes the lake level to drop due to evaporation. This causes further concentration of salt in the lakes. The lowered lake level causes islands with nesting sites to become accessible by predators because of land bridges. Okay, so a land bridge would be kind of like this right here that they can walk through, and if there's anything nesting there, they'll be able to get it. Okay, so what is happening to the ecosystem? Well, they're saying right here, water is being diverted from Mono Lake to supply Los Angeles. Okay, so what's happening to the ecosystem is that water is being taken from the lake and given to a city. Okay, so water. So here we're going to put at Mono Lake, the water is being diverted from the lake to Los Angeles. Again, diverted just means it's being taken away. So instead of going into the lake, we're going to move it over here. So is this a short-term or a long-term change? Okay, so if we look at slide number 4, remember, all of this is like natural disasters. Short-term are going to be natural, your droughts, your flooding, the volcanic eruptions, forest fires, blizzards. But when humans are involved, when people are involved, it is a long-term change. Okay? We cause deforestation. We cause urbanization. We cause climate change. We cause radioactive waste. Okay? So this right here is going to be a long-term change because humans are causing it. So it is long-term. The change is long-term. Okay? So next question says, what will happen to the population of nesting species if this continues? Okay. Well, here it says, I highlight that. The lowered lake level causes islands with nesting sites to become accessible by predators because of land bridges. Okay. So what it's saying again is instead of, these nesting species, whether it be birds or reptiles or whatever, they're going to build their nest out in the middle of the lake because that water is being taken away. Now you're going to have land because there's no more water sitting on that dirt. So now little animals can go and eat all the eggs. So if this continues, the population will decrease because predators can use those land bridges to get to bee nest. Okay. So now that we have that copied down, okay, we're going to do the same thing for each one. So on slide 7, this one's going to talk about hurricanes. What happened to the ecosystem? Is it short-term or long-term? What's going to happen to the wildflowers and gap species? Slide 8, deforestation, okay, and the loss of species. So again, what's happening to the ecosystem? Is it short-term or long-term? And what's going to happen to the plant and animal population? Drainage ditch. What happened to the ecosystem? Is it short-term or long-term? Explain, you're going to talk about the plants that can be found in the ditch using that information. Okay. So at this time, go ahead and start working on the remaining 3 questions. And then when you're ready for me to check it, let me know. Thanks, Jesus.